Remote again with Tony. How are you today, everyone? I hope you're going to enjoy what I've got for you today. I have my fantastic friend, Sandy Mamoli. How are you going?
I'm good, thank you. I'm super happy to be here and I look forward to the chat.
I'm so happy to have you on. But just before we get into that, a couple of housekeeping things. At Talking Remote, obviously as part of Remote AF's just done a freemium release. So you can get some of our patterns now. You can try them out. Why don't you go to remoteaf.co, click on the appropriate buttons and have a look at those. If you want to join our community, remoteaf.co, again, click the community button and you can sign up for our Teamcraft newsletter, which you'll find in the show notes below, along with all of the things Sandy talks about today. We'll put some links in there as well. Sandy, fantastic to have you. I'm not going to introduce you. Everybody knows who Sandy Mamoli is, surely, right? So if you're watching this, I'm assuming that you're watching this to see Sandy. We're going to talk today about a talk that you gave, and I saw this talk and it really resonated with me, and I was so keen to have you on, and I immediately pinged you as soon as I found out and said, Sandy, this are you drowning in your autonomy and in good intentions? It was a great talk and I wanted to chat to you. I want to ask the question, where did it come from before we even get started?
It started quite a while ago, and that was post-COVID when I somehow sensed that something wasn't quite right, and that things had changed, and that we had lots of research and lots of talk about how people and employees felt. That we had lots of surveys, lots of articles about remote work and how do employees perceive the world, how are they doing? And that there was basically nothing about leaders and their experiences and how they felt and how they perceived the new world of working. And what I did was I just called up any leader that I knew and interviewed them. And I tried to get as wide a range as possible. So I had people from the US, from New Zealand, Australia, from Europe, and a different variety of sectors. And they're all on a level of CEO, COO, partners at a law firm, and relatively high up. And I asked them what they saw and how they experienced the world. And the main thing that came out of this was that they saw that people were really fearful, they were fragile, and they were more self-absorbed than ever. And I just thought, okay, wow, this is in a way surprising, but in a way also what I do observe. And I then looked into, is it all the leaders being insane, or are there actual mental health stats to back this up? Turned out this is true and this is actually happening. And this is not just COVID or post-COVID, like lots of things have happened, and the world at the moment is quite an uncertain place, and people overall struggle with life. And what I did then was look into the consequences, look at what happens in our workplaces, how this has impacted our workplaces, and what we could possibly do about this.
What I love about the talk is that you based it around, actual real research and talking to people. And one of the things that resonated as you and I were chatting off screen is that with Remote AF, one of the things that we've talked about for quite some time is when we went remote, and we did focus a lot on getting people working, but leaders got left behind in the dust, so to speak. And they took it pretty hard. And a lot of people don't sort of look at me when I say that. And I say, well, leaders spent 999 times of their day trying to be in every single meeting, trying to be every single thing to every single person to understand what's happening. And because we weren't structured or we didn't have the right mechanisms in place, we didn't enable them. And I think, that people are fragile. And I'm going to read it because I wrote this out of your actual talk. People are fragile, fearful, and more self-absorbed than ever. And you said that before. But why? And how does that affect leadership? So I'm interested to hear what you've got to say about that.
Yeah. I think that's a really good question to answer, to ask why, because one is the, yes, this is happening, but what do we do with it? And what I came to, or what leaders said, is that, well, there is so much uncertainty in the world. People like us, like a year ago, we could basically get whatever job we wanted in tech. Now there are layoffs in tech. The world has become more uncertain. There are climate events, and there's like general anxiety. And when people feel that, they're not creative, they're not outgoing, they don't do what they do when they are free and make connections between different fields and different ideas. People who are struggling a little bit, and I'm not saying this is every single person, but it's happening in most workplaces, and many people are. People who struggle, they become inwards facing. They don't have the energy or the headspace to think creative thoughts. And they basically sit back and go, okay, I can't think right now. I can't deal with this right now. Just tell me what you want me to do. And I will do it and I will deliver, but just tell me what to do. And this is something that becomes really hard, both for leaders, but also for people. And I think it sets us back also as an industry, because we have been fighting for autonomy for, 20 years? Telling everyone that we're not factory workers, we are creative workers. You need to trust us and give us autonomy. And all of a sudden, many of us are so anxious that we go, actually, I just can't deal with this right now. Just tell me what you need me to do.
Yeah, it's created that, and you mentioned in your talk, and it's something that again, as I said to you, we've been talking about a long time, is that it is really that learned helplessness. It's become a learned pattern of helplessness, and it is going through the roof. And the other thing I like that you pulled out that I really want to sort of tag into that is, even thinking about the field of AI and some of those things. People are just accepting what AI is telling them, and that's a form of learn, and it's exacerbating that because it's matched into what you're talking about.
Yes, and it took me by surprise, because there's the obvious stuff, or things that were obvious to me when I work with a team and I see those like lukewarm teams, and they sit back in a sprint planning meeting or whatever planning meeting, and just work on tickets and just wait to be taught what to do, basically cut up requirements, spec, and just tell me what to do without asking why and what the outcome is and what they're working on. And I, like many others, then thought, oh yeah, but I'm not doing this. And then at some point, someone talked about AI and just accepting the answer, and realized maybe I'm partially doing this too. The asking or using AI and then getting a reply and just going, oh yeah, this is true, without even asking, like, does it make sense? Is it even relevant? And should I actually question it, or I should just move on? So I think it's very, very tempting to just trust AI and not think. And part of it is maybe anxiety, don't want to think, can't think. And some of it is overconfidence in AI, and just not being the headspace to wanting to move on.
And I think that's all flowing. That learned helplessness is all flowing into leadership as well, right? So what it does now is as a leader, I think David Marquez says that when you hear him talk about it as well, is you never get to go home. You're always the one in the driver's seat, and you're always the one answering the question. So, and you talked a little bit about that affects our mental state, or affects leadership's mental state as well. So talk to me a little bit about that, because it was really interesting how you were talking about that.
Like, all leaders I talked to were talking about how exhausted they were. And one person literally said to me, we are people too, and people tend to forget this. And because people are, through no fault of their own, are currently self-absorbed, they don't have the empathy to think about what are they doing, what are we doing to our leaders. And they talked about the exhaustion. They talk about feeling responsible for everything. And I think many of them have, because they're good people, are not very good at setting boundaries of those are the things that they are responsible for, and that those are work things, and they are not necessarily responsible for how their employees and how everyone feels about life. And I think many leaders make that mistake and find it hard to set boundaries. And I think the same also goes for agile coaches. Like, we had someone as an agile coach I know, it's like, oh, people are feeling really, really bad and they're really stressed out. What do I do about it? It's like, Actually, nothing. This is not your responsibility as an agile coach. But it's very easy to take this on, and people and leaders struggle because it's really hard.
Yes, yeah. I'm going to put myself out there, so at the risk of the agile community coming after me, but I truly believe this, and I said it to you before, is that as an agile community, we've often stepped into probably some of those things that we shouldn't, because when you start talking about people's mental health and etc., we're not qualified practitioners, right? We're not qualified in that space. And the second thing is some of the language that we've used over the period of time. You know, servant leadership, for example, is one, particularly in the frame of what we're talking about at the moment. It has become a thing that you know, leaders are usually quite clever because they're in their space, and they're leaders and they lead people, and we all of a sudden tell them you have to be a servant. And I had a very high senior leader say to me, I'm not nobody's servant, mate. I don't even, I'm not even my partner's servant, right? So why would do you want me to tie their shoelaces? And that really struck home with me, and I think that resonates with you as well.
Totally resonates with me, and I've read Robert Greenleaf's original article, and I really liked it. So I like the concept, which is put the we above the I. I hate the word servant leadership because my personal reaction was I'm not a servant, I'm not a waitress. But I think it's just because it's from the 1970s, so it's a word. Words change meaning, and also us as an agile, or we as an agile community, have contributed to words changing meaning in a way that I think it's not very helpful. But yeah, I hate the term. I don't use it, but I do like the concept of we above the I, about the teamwork and leadership within teamwork. And what we miss out when we use the word servant is servant sounds really one-directional. I'm doing everything for you. And that's how we get leaders exhausted or rejecting this. Instead of, yes, this means that I do everything I can to help the team achieve its goal. But that also means the team, every single person on the team, is accountable and needs to perform well. It's bi-directional, and I think the term servant, it makes that hard, takes that out in a way.
Yeah, and when you add that to the frame of things we're talking about, language is so important,
Yep.
right? Because then it impacts your ability to help people as well. So the other thing that I liked in talking about, which spans into this, is because you have the learned helplessness and that fragility that we're talking about, and leaders then find themselves showing up at meetings that they just don't need to be at, and it becomes a real mistaking presence. And I love that phrase. I've written it down here: mistaking presence for impact. And I've so much seen it. In fact, put my hand up. Right in the beginning, I found myself doing that. It wasn't until we started creating Remote AF. I went, "You're doing that," and when you said it, it was so poignant and resonated with me. Talk to me a little bit where that came from. How you came to that.
Yeah, that was a head of customer experience of a large New Zealand organization. And it actually comes from the not thinking, from being stressed. So you just say yes to every invite because you do want to help, you do want to be in the know, you hope you can contribute. And especially if you are not in the same room, then it is easy to lose connections, and it is more tempting to just go, yes, I will show up. And found that one, it's bad for how we feel about our work because, well, it stresses us out, and it's those back-to-back meetings. And it also, our productivity takes a major hit because all of a sudden our days are just fractured into little or little disruptions all the time. And again, that contributes to innovation and creativity nosediving. And that's both leaders and people. By the way, when I say people, I think most people are both. But yeah, most people are both. And if you're a boss, you're definitely people, but you can also be a leader at the same time. So I think that goes for everyone. This the bad habit of just going, yes, I'll go to a meeting, and then I did love that that too. What this guy said, it's mistaking presence for impact.
So what I liked, and the reason I really wanted to have you on is because you just didn't talk about the causal effects and the symptoms, etc. You also talk about how we might resolve some of this, how we might take to looking in the best way to alleviate some of these problems. So I'm going to just sort of drop into that a little bit with you. There were 3 frames of reference that you put around it, which were resilience, reassess and recalibrate your relationships, and give people space to be resilient. I think I've got those 3. So we might just sort of work our way through those a little bit if that works for you. So off the top of it is that resilience piece, I think, is the first bit that you tend to talk about. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. First of all, I want to say that when I created my talk and I did the interviews, that was all like super easy, flowing, and I loved doing it. And then I got to that stage, yeah, but there's no value in it if we don't figure out what to do. And then again, well, first of all, I started thinking, and secondly, I started going out to the community, go, hey, we need to talk about this. And there are a few themes that came out of that. And as you said, the first one is resilience. And resilience, to start out with that resilience, but by that I don't mean just like go harder, push through, and ignore what's happening. That's just plain dumb. But to see it as a mechanism to bounce back from adversity. And it's basically what Agile is about. There is something: adapt, adjust, and win. And because my heart's very close to sports, so I read a lot about that. And I came across a book that's called Grit by Angela Duckworth. And she's writing about research about resilience and looking into elite athletes. And the first thing she found out was that every single elite athlete ever has developed resilience by going through adversity. So basically, without adversity, there's no way that people end up being really, really good at something, or elite at something, or winning. And then the second thing I came across in sports was Matt Fitzgerald, who talks about frameworks for how to address adversity and how to get through adversity to develop resilience. And I can talk to that a little bit, which is where the framework where he found out all the athletes he interviewed, in some way or another, used the same framework, which is accept reality, which is don't deny it, don't pretend it's not happening, just like accept this is actually happening and this is true. Then address reality, figure out what to do about it, and you might need to change your tactics, your strategy, potentially even your mindset, and then embrace it. And that's the part that's really hard and really useful, which is feeling good about it and fully going into this new situation where you now thrive because of that situation. That's where the real growth is. And overall, resilience is not something that comes from just going avoiding hard things, but it comes from accepting them and then going through that framework mentally. And I really love that, and I have taken that over to the world of work, where I think that we can show up in our organizations and figure out where the tensions are, where the hard things are, and instead of going, I feel a little bit stressed today, I'm just going to take a mental health day. I'm going to avoid the situation. Ask yourself, is this really necessary, or could I apply this framework to deal with this reality?
That's an interesting thing that resonated with me, because a lot of resilience, when you hear it talked about, resilience is about just accepting the situation and then moving on. But what we learned from the sport community and from what you're saying around the frameworks is it's not just about accepting it. It's actually going, okay, working through it as to how you can actually do something about it. And I think that's the different piece of what you were saying that a lot of people don't touch. I like that a lot. How do you get leaders to listen to you about that, though? That's the interesting thing for me, Sandy.
I don't know if they always listen to me, and I think I do think it's for me, it's establishing a relationship where I listen to them and they listen to me. So a lot of those conversations I had, I did also share the things that I concluded, like the resilience and so on. And I think they were listening to me because I was listening to them. And I wasn't just going, hey, here's the solution. It's a conversation. And in general, I think nobody ever listens to you if you don't have this equal relationship between two people.
Yeah, I like that. All right, let's just take the next piece that you were talking about, and that's reassess and recalibrate your relationships. So talk to me how you came to that one. I've got some questions on this one. So.
I'm congratulating myself a little bit on the back of my head. It's like, oh my God, wasn't it a good segue? Like going from how do leaders listen to you? Well, you need to have an equal relationship. So, yes, this is exactly what we need to talk about. One of a standout quote for me when I interviewed leaders was one person who said, this has gone too far. I feel like this is like a 1950s relationship, that leaders are like the 1950s husbands taking care of absolutely everything, like financial well-being, social well-being, everything in a person's life. And and how exhausting that is, and how horrible that is, and how that makes us, the 1950s housewives, just sitting back waiting to be taught what to do and succeeding. And I thought, well, this is not a personality thing, because this is highly context dependent. This is the same person in a different context, being in different relationships. So I thought, what we need to look at is our relationships. They need to be equal. So we both listen to each other and both respect each other. And I also came to that conclusion. I thought that because I thought we had it sussed. There was a time during the lockdowns where I think it worked really well. We were all working from home. Nobody had any control over their tech really yet, when we could see leaders and their children were just walking through the screen, and their dog had a barking.
The dog's barking, yes.
Yes. Does it make me a leader that I have a barking?
Definitely.
Definitely. But we saw each other as people who happen to have a certain role. And I think that has changed again, where we now just see the role and see a hierarchy in role, and take that to mean a hierarchy in a relationship between people. And by that, I mean, I think there's nothing wrong with formal hierarchy, but I still think that our relationship as humans need to be equal. And I think they currently are not, with people who sit, one half of the people sitting back and going, oh, tell me what to do, I can't deal. And the other half going like, oh my God, if I don't tell them what to do, they won't do anything. I just need to tell them what to do, which exacerbates or forces leaders very often into command and control, and something they don't necessarily want to do either. That was a bit of a ramble, so I'm not sure that makes sense.
No, that makes sense. It does make sense. And the interesting thing, I have a thing that I say all the time. Like, so if we take an agility lens of this as well, when you bring agility to an organisation, whether it be in remote or it be in physical or hybrid or whatever it is, right? Agility by road disseminates control. That's what it's meant to do, and that's the way that we implement it, because it allows you to pivot and make decisions. But in this kind of situation we're talking about, and particularly with what's happened, is when you disseminate control, that only leaves one other lever, which becomes command. And you apply this learned helplessness and all the things that we just talked to that, and then you do have this command and control that starts to reassert itself, because they feel like they have to be the ones that are providing everything. So that really resonated with me, and as did the 50s resonation. So what feedback have you had from people when you're talking to them about this?
When it was leaders, mostly it's oh my God, I was so relieved it's not just me. Several people have come back to me and said, I thought it was just me who felt like this. It was just that I was alone, but others are feeling the same and that they are relieved about it. And I have had reactions from other people who said, yes, we are losing autonomy, and oh my God, yes, I have been doing this. And I never questioned that the person I report to would not want me to do this. And they have actually confirmed this kind of vicious circle of the relationships that I believe we need to fix.
So one question that struck me that I wrote down, and I really wanted to ask against this as we sort of walk through it. How do I frame? Because in leadership, if you're not a leader, or the way leadership is taught or has been taught for a very long time, if you're not the leader who's in control and telling people what to do, or seem to be doing such, right, then that's deemed as a weakness of leadership, or it's seen as that. So when we talk about the things we're talking about today, how does that affect leadership, do you think, in terms of what we're talking about today?
I would have hoped that we had moved on from that. I know it is still happening, but
Yes.
everything we know tells us that this is actually not true. It is not what makes a good leader. And everyone who has ever been on a good sports team, for example, knows that there is no tell other people what to do all the time. There are roles where you sometimes do, sometimes you're in control. In this particular situation, I'm calling the shots when decisions need to be made very quickly. But that doesn't mean I always call the shots. Plus, I'm also very situationally aware of is that a decision or a situation where we have time to establish consensus and can talk about it, make a shared decision, or is that a situation where we need to be really, really fast and we don't have time to discuss and someone just needs to call the shots? So I think what you're saying to me sounds like very old-fashioned leadership or very superficial knowledge about leadership. And I know this is happening, but I think there's so much more to leadership. It's a huge field where, like in any role or job, you need to have a huge toolbox of things that you can do in your leadership toolkit, and then the experience to know what to use when.
Yeah, and you're right. Like that's not the majority, but I do see that. I still see that in organisations. Dare I say, particularly governmental organisations still have a strong thread of that runs through them because of the hierarchy that you were describing. That's why I was thinking that. I've got a couple of questions here, so I just might stop for one of those, and I'll just put it up on screen because it's a nice one. You know, what's your thoughts on that particular question?
I think that is a really, really good question. And the thing that pops into my head is could there be some learned helplessness right there? And the good thing about learned helplessness is that it's learned. So somehow those teams have learned that the best course of action is to escalate the blockers. And I would think about where that comes from. And then how can you give them some guidance and then get them to solve some of the blockers themselves? I don't think that a course of action where just go, cool, you guys solve it. I'm totally hands off if they're coming from a lot of escalation and getting that help. But I think gradually weaning off is something that has worked for me. The boundaries they have at the moment, and they don't need to be real boundaries. They're just like perceived in a culture or people's heads, which makes them equally real. But help people push those boundaries. Like, hey, there's a smaller things, a smaller blocker. How will you solve that? Let them try figure it out. And if they say like, oh, no, you should solve this, then have the conversation around where do we want to be in the future. We can see an autonomous team in the future who can make decisions, and how can we together find a way to gradually increase the autonomy.
I hope that answers your question. Escalates quick. I've got another one from LinkedIn user, so I don't know who you are. So this is an interesting question. They've turned around the other way and said, if you're actually taking the learned helplessness away, that means you're changing the way people work. How do people react?
When you take, you mean like giving teams to full autonomy?
Yeah, I think that's what they're saying, is because you're going to change the frame of their reference.
Yep.
So all of a sudden they've gone from being learned helplessness to being autonomous. What happens then?
If you do it from one day to the other, I wish I could say people go, yay, freedom, and just totally nail it. My experience is they don't. People will hate it, people will be confused, and it's again a disruptor. Like, let me just do my job, just tell me what to code, tell me what to do. I can go into the detail and actually not want to do all this additional thinking, and you just make my world a super uncertain place, and you just totally changed what I do. So I think 8 out of 10, we have a few that thrive from day one, but 8 out of 10 will not like this, which is why I think it's a gradual weaning off the learned helplessness and gradual increase of autonomy. And I can give you a personal example. Like, again, it's a sports example where I used to play handball, and as a team sport athlete at a high level, you are being taught what to do. Like you being told when to go to bed, what to eat, when to show up for practice, and you are within those constraints. You're being taught what to do. All my life, I've fought against those constraints. Then I moved countries, was in a different context where we could set those constraints ourselves, and I couldn't cope. I'm not an underconfident person. I'm not someone who doesn't like freedom, but I really could not cope. It took me a year to figure out that this was a good thing, and how I needed to approach life, how I needed to approach work, what happened to be professional athlete work, but how I needed to approach my work to get, to have a good time and to perform well. So I think what I'm trying to say is this is something that is not a personality thing. It is dependent on context, and it's something that's learned and can be unlearned, and happens to the best of us.
Yeah, I agree. I think the other thing too is like, you talk about that, and this is no difference to David Marquet, because I hardly agree with intent-based leadership, but people do watch the clips or read the book and then walk in the next day and try to just flip the switch immediately. Now, that may or may not have happened in this environment, though. If you read through it and you listen carefully, it took a lot longer than what the actual clip says, right? So, and again, it's you just don't turn it on its head immediately, because you'll get that adverse kind of reaction to it. You've got to start to enter into changes in small, very agile, really, into small increments of change in mindset, right?
And I really love the 7 stages of delegation.
Yes.
I forgot who originally came up with it, but Jürgen Apollo has popularized it, and he plays delegation poker. But it's basically it's not binary, I decide or you decide, but there are 5 steps in between those extremes. And what we need to do is first of all have clarity where each decision lies, and then have a discussion around, cool, if this is a decision right now where as a manager I pretty much tell you what to do, how can we move you a step further up to one of the more autonomous levels of delegation. And you don't just go from 0 to 7, but you go from 0 to 1 to 2 and so on. So I really like that framework for doing that.
I think it's a great segue into the final frame of reference that you had within the talk, which was give people space to be resilient. So you can sort of draw us a lot of the similes with what we're talking, but let's chat through that one and where that comes from.
That's a TED talk that Alex Stokes has pointed out to me, and I think it's Michael Bongier who does that, and he's talking about something called the advice monster. That as leaders, that as leaders we are trying to be helpful, and we're having this conversation with people, and they tell us about a problem, and about a sentence and a half, there's this advice monster popping up, and it tells us, oh yeah, I know how to solve this problem. I know what you should do. I just give advice now. And how damaging that is for people, how much more this actually creates this learned helplessness, and it's not what people need. And as leaders, we should hold back, make that advice monster when it pops up, and this happens to all of us, when it pops up, make it shut up, and then ask the person questions. Tell me more about it. What else? What's the real challenge? What would you like me to do? And only actually give advice if people want the advice. People want the advice, and that creates space for people to be more autonomous, to figure things out for themselves, try some things, and develop the resilience they need to perform well and to feel good.
And I think that I love that advice also, as I said before, because we've all done it, right? It doesn't matter what you do, or even in your own personal life, the advice monster pops out. You just want to tell people what to do, right? Sometimes you can see, like I've got children, and I can see my children doing things, and you just really want to go, no, stop doing it, do that, do it this way, do it. And then you have to think in your head and go, no, they need to learn, because they need to actually experience it, right? And that's where you're coming from as well.
Yeah, exactly. And we had a very short conversation about that. The not using the failure is totally okay, but to realize that making mistakes are okay. We still want to succeed, but it's okay to make small mistakes. And I call it rocking the boat without sinking the ship, because you don't want catastrophic failure. And as a leader and as a parent, you do want to protect children, or you want to protect the rest of your team from catastrophic failure. But you do want to push boundaries as a coach, for example, and have people make mistake and feel the consequences, and that's how we all learn.
Yes. So we did have a conversation off here, did we? And of course, I got on. I'll put my soapbox down, jump up on it now, if you like, and started talking about safe to fail, because I think that is one of the worst phrases that our agile community has ever propagated. Because the minute you talk to any kind of leadership or senior leadership, and particularly if you're in financial environments or any of the organisations we're in now, and you're trying to help them, there's nothing safe to fail, right? You have to flip that around and go, how are we going to fail safely? How are we going to give people the space to get that resilience, like you were just talking about, and change that frame of reference?
Yep, great. And what I'm thinking is I had this great interaction with Steph Bysouth, where I said something about, I don't fail. And Steph just turned around and said, Sandy, you do fail. You just don't fail publicly. And I thought, this is absolutely right. Like, when I do a talk, the first version is absolutely abysmal, but I fail. And I do it to first my wife. It's pretty bad. The second I do to my colleagues at No More Age. It's a little less bad. Then I have small groups of people who I try it out on, and I get bigger and bigger and bigger at the time, until I'm capable of doing a keynote and speaking in front of 1,300 people, and that's okay. But it's because I've made all those mistakes along the way, and I don't call it fail. It's just working through the process, improving things until at the end you succeed. So I too have a problem with the word failure, and I would still say I don't fail, but I make a shit ton of mistakes.
I think we have to form a group, Failure Anonymous. Yeah. Big shout out to Steph Bysouth as well. We're going to get you on the cast as well. I'm busy talking to her, so she's a good friend of the group as well. So that'll be fantastic. Look, Sandy, I say this to some of my guests, we could talk forever, and we truly could talk a lot longer on each of these things, but it's been fantastic having you on. I really enjoyed the talk. I think this is a fantastic talk. The thing with me is, how can people see it? How can they learn more about it? How can they get in touch with you if they want to chat more on this?
If you'd like to chat with me, it's first of all, go to our website. It's nomad8.com, and I write some articles there and publish some things. And you can also just drop me an email at sandy@nomad8.com. I'm happy to talk to anyone, or look me up on LinkedIn. Again, either publicly or DM me. I'm happy to connect.
Brilliant, and I'll put those in the show notes as well, so people can get in touch with you. If you've been watching this and you like what we do, please like, subscribe, so that we can keep this rolling. You want to join our newsletter, Team Craft, the link's in the bottom there. As I said, go and have a look at the new freemium release that we've done. You can go to remoteaf.co, and you can join our community there. Lots of people talking about this kind of stuff, so just click the community button. It'd be fantastic to have you. Sandy Mamoli, it's been fantastic to have you on it, Talking Remote today.
Thank you. It's been very cool to be here.